Hello there and welcome to Unqualified Opinions. I'm Marko Jerkovic.
And I'm Beiermann.
And today we're going to be talking some NBA news and some opening game stuff. But before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comments section down below. First, let's just get out of the way the Ben Simmons stuff. After holding out for most of the summer, he showed up to practice, refused to take part in a defensive drill that Doc Rivers wanted him to take part of. Then he was fined, I believe, $1.4 million, suspended for the Sixers opener against the Pelicans, and then he showed up to the facility yesterday, that being Wednesday, and then got some treatment, said he had some back tightness, and then I think he just left. He just walked out of the building. So certainly a fluid situation in Philadelphia, and things might even happen between us recording this and it being released, but just your take on what's going on with Ben Simmons and the 76ers.
It's going to be one of the weirdest games of chicken we're going to see for a long time. I mean, you have Ben Simmons, who for one is a multi-time All-Star, all-defensive caliber player. However, he is somehow one with his refusal to shoot, which my concern with him not shooting is less about him not being able to do it. It's more about the fact that he's been a pro for 5-6 seasons now and he refuses to do it. Even though, again, for his rookie year, he had an entire season just to kind of sit on the bench. He didn't play at all because he was hurt. He could have worked on that. So it really does start to look like the Sixers narrative of Ben Simmons is just not a motivated player who doesn't work hard. That's starting to look like that's true.
Yeah, so it looks like a complete mess, and trading him is going to be really difficult because teams obviously know he wants to be traded. He certainly will have some type of say where he ends up, because then if he just gets moved to a place he doesn't want to be, he can just sit. So Daryl Morey and the 76ers front office have been put in a pretty precarious situation, but I'm pretty sure they can handle it. It's not going to be ideal. Obviously, when you trade a superstar, you're not going to get the whole dollar back. You're going to get various types of change, but I think the way the 76ers are currently constructed, they're probably a 5 or 6 seed in the East. But obviously without Ben Simmons, they're not a championship caliber team. And obviously the distraction he causes makes it even worse and even more challenging for the organization.
I mean, I'm going to agree with what Doc Rivers said in a press conference. He said, just it doesn't feel like fun for the team without Ben Simmons. I think that's important because Joel Embiid leads to fun basketball, but there's just such a cloud over the organization. And I think it's going to be harder to trade him than you think for 2 reasons. One, Daryl Morey is very insistent on that Godfather offer package he was talking about earlier in the season. He wants a lot of draft picks. He wants established players. I don't know if any teams are going to be willing to give him that at this point. And then looking back, so just today, the head draft expert for ESPN, Jonathan Givney, put out, re-released his 2016 rookie class report on Ben Simmons and said his lack of competitiveness in crucial games has raised questions about his character. Those who know him best say he needs things to revolve around him on and off the court, and he's often been closed-minded to coaching and instruction.
So that has aged well. That has aged really well, although time will tell if he can get that turned around. And obviously, just outside of the personality aspect, you have several other issues with Ben Simmons.
It's hard.
His lack of development as a player, does make roster construction and his own play on the court an issue, and then his own health. He's missed several games, throughout his career for various different types of injuries. So Ben Simmons, it's an issue there. Now let's move on to some opening night NBA stuff. So the first night of actual NBA play, there were only 2 games. Warriors and Steph Curry came back in a good one to beat the Lakers, who struggled down the stretch to close out Golden State. And then in the very opening game, the first game of the season, saw the Bucks get their championship rings and raise their banner for their 2021 NBA title. And a Kyrie-less Brooklyn Nets were blown out by Giannis and the Bucks. Any thoughts on the opening night of play?
I mean, opening night, we saw that Giannis and the Bucks are truly serious about trying to come back to the same intensity, dominate the regular season, and get back to where they were. I mean, obviously, we've seen whether it's Vegas sports books or just analyst reactions, most people are not favoring the Milwaukee Bucks to be the championship again. It's kind of going to the net, and the Lakers. Nets are obviously pretty contingent on Kyrie Irving. The Lakers game, you're going to see a lot of weird, not like kind of just fluff and filler about Russell Westbrook. It's his first game with the Lakers. Of course, there's going to be some struggles. There's going to be some weirdness, but I'm not ready to panic on that one, no matter, even though Russ really did play poorly in his debut for the Lakers.
Yeah, and when you look at Golden State, obviously they're still down James Wiseman, who can be a dynamic, athletic 5 with good defensive upside, and then one of the best shooters in the league. And before his series of injuries, one of the best wing defenders in the NBA, Klay Thompson. So Golden State is potentially back to being a threat. I would say already is back to being a threat based on their performance in the opening night of play. And then looking at the second night, there were several highlights. I mean, a rebuilt Bulls team struggled with a bottom feeder Pistons who are without
Cade Cunningham.
Celtics blew it against the Knicks. The Nuggets and the Suns played a really, really good game that certainly with Chris Paul withstanding looks like kind of the future of the Western Conference in many ways. And then the 76ers without Ben Simmons throttled the Pelicans, who are without Zion Williamson, who has his own series of issues for sure. Any other games that I didn't mention? Of course, the Jazz were a top contender in the West, took care of the Thunder. Any other thoughts from the opening few nights of action in the NBA?
I guess one player I'd want to highlight for sure is Chris Duarte. We talked about him a lot during our draft show because he was a 24-year-old...
The blues musician?
If you say so, Marko.
The professional athlete, Chris Duarte.
But yeah, he was a 24-year-old lottery pick, which is exceedingly rare in the
It really is.
In the borderline one and done, the asterisk one and done era.
In the borderline, not even going to college, going straight into the G League or Australian League.
But we had Chris Duarte from Oregon come in and drop 27 points in a great game for the Pacers, which turned into a big win for the Hornets. LaMelo Ball also looked fantastic. But I'll talk about your Celtics, Marko, because they did blow it, but wow, what a game to open NBA play with.
It was a great game.
That was an absolute thriller.
And Jaylen Brown looks phenomenal. The thing is that was, you can maybe say that Jaylen Brown exceeded expectations, but if that's the type or at least the certain caliber he can reach on occasion, considering that Jason Tatum was completely off his game and that they're building in several other new pieces, I think the Celtics are in a decent spot despite the lackluster performance. Really, I mean, the Spurs took care of business against the Magic as you would expect them to. Karl Anthony Towns had a spirited performance against a Rockets team that certainly is not great, but maybe with some interesting young pieces could try to get into the play-in conversation, although I don't think they can.
I think the Nuggets game's a big game to look at. I mean, you obviously really can't read much into the first game of the season, but the Nuggets' concern right now is how do they play without Jamal Murray, because they're going to be without him until February, more than likely, and they really handle business. I mean, they're going to have a different starting lineup, but Aaron Gordon was tremendous. I don't think he's going to be kind of the dominant guy we thought he would be as a 1 or 2 option, but as like that glue guy, he's looking great. But I mean,
great defender. He'll defend the opposition's best wing player. That way Michael Porter Jr. can be, what he needs to be offensively. And so they're a good tandem on the wing. And then, like you said, once they get Jamal Murray back, they're going to be dangerous. I think they're going to be really dangerous. I think they're one of the most complete teams in the league once they get him back from injury.
To me, they answer some questions. The Suns are a great team. The question for me was, as much as Jokic is one of the dominant ball handlers on that team, passers, it's how the Will Barton, Monte Morris, Facundo Campazzo kind of trio rotation at point guard is going to hold up. They did okay in the playoffs, but they got it done against the Suns. And again, you can't read too much into it, but they answered a lot of my concerns last night.
Let us know your thoughts on the first few days of action in the NBA. And of course, the big storylines with a lot of players either out with injury or because of other non-basketball related things. And just let us know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below. Again, for Will Beiermann, I'm Marko Jerkovic. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.